Recorded. Okay, cool. Then I'm gonna unmute and you turn. As well as your sound.
Yeah, my sound's on.
Sound's on and your mic is on.
My mic is on. I'm sharing my screen.
Okay, sorry about that. So for homework 3 and on, for each problem, we're going to ask you to make a separate Python file for each problem. This is for ease of the graders. What we used to have to do is scroll through one Python file. We'll be a little more lenient with it this time because we hadn't made the announcement until halfway through when it was supposed to be due. So reminder, it's not due tonight, it's due a week from tonight. If you haven't already submitted, put the problems into separate Python files. If you don't have time to do that, that's fine. Remember, you have 3 weeks grace period as per usual on our homeworks. Yeah, that's my announcement. This is Brianna.
Hi guys. I popped in a little bit on the first day. I haven't been here a ton, but today we're going to be learning about lists and dictionaries, which are very useful in Python, especially when it comes to plotting or just storing information in general. Also, it's Valentine's Day, so happy Valentine's Day. All right, so this is basically everything Charlie said. So homework is due next Wednesday, not today. And then these are office hours. If you have any questions, you're welcome to drop by. And then I think Charlie's taking attendance, so we don't have the tiny URL.
That's great. I saw people walk in. Anyone didn't raise your hand if you didn't. What was your name? Kashfi.
Joshua.
Kashfi Joshua. Robert, right? Maria. Maran. And Zahira. Great.
All right. So, what are lists? So it's kind of given in the name. They're a collection of items in a particular order. So lists care about the sequencing. So as we'll learn, there's a way to index them. So if you want to figure out what the 4th item in your list is, you can call that 4th item. Whereas dictionaries have a key and value system. So indexing them, they're two sides of the same coin when it comes to storing information, but just for different purposes. And they're very nice because with variables, you can only assign one item to them, but with lists, you can assign multiple. And in a list, you can assign multiple different types of variables. So you can store numbers, you can store strings, you can store other lists inside lists. You can also store Booleans, so it's very versatile. Flexible, as in we can easily add things, we can easily take away things, we can easily find things in our list. It's a very nice part of Python. And then, yeah, so sequences, so numbering of the items in our lists. Okay, so we're going to go over how to create a list in Python. I'll be doing a demo, and we're going to walk through it together. And then we're going, but before that, we're also going to learn how to index and access your list, how to append items or add items, and other little handy things that you can do in Python with lists. All right, so to begin, I have the basic format right here. So you have a variable name, you set it equal. With lists, you need to use the square brackets. So you have parentheses, square brackets, and curly brackets. Lists are in squares. So you're going to separate each of your items with a comma. So values here could be replaced by numbers. So I could have 1, 2, 3, up to however many you want. And then for an empty list, you're just going to set 2 square brackets with nothing in it. So it's just fully empty, but you're calling that list. So right here, I have months and it's empty. Oh, yes, what's your question? Why would you want empty list? Well, let's say I'm plotting something and I don't know what my values are yet. So I create an empty list, and then as I retrieve my values, I can fill my list with certain items and then I can plot those. So it's handy, like if you're, let's say I can get more into that later. But yeah, so we'll start with an empty list and then you can fill your list. So I filled it with 2 months of the year. I filled it with January and February. What is different about this compared to values? Like pretend value is a number. What is different about January and February? Can anyone tell me? Yeah, they're strings. Why are they strings? How do you know? Yep, the quotation mark. So that's very important. So sometimes Python will throw you an error if you, well, it will throw you an error if you don't have your strings inside quotation marks.
Sometimes if it throws you an error and you're like, what is this? I didn't do anything wrong, check your quotation marks. It's generally bad.
Yes. Also, when we get to packages, it's important to know the order of what you're storing. So it's very important to remember that lists have square brackets, but that'll be more in further lectures. All right, so indexing and accessing a list. So as a warning, Python starts at 0. So even though you start at 1, Python starts 1 before that. So apple, even though it's technically the first item of my list, Python starts it at 0. And then banana is my first, orange is second, and grape is third. And then if I want to call, let's say, banana, then instead of calling 2, because it's technically the second item, I'm going to call 1, which is what I've done down here. So so my list is fruits. I'm accessing the first element, which is technically the second item in my list, and then I'm printing it. So that's why it's banana. Do we have any questions or? Okay. All right, so this is getting a little more into it. So I'm back with my same list. I have fruits equal to apple, banana, orange, grape. And then if let's say I want to add pear to my list, there's 2 ways to add. The most common way is to use dot append. So I'm going to take my list name, I'm going to say dot append, and then I'm going to say whatever I want to add. In this case, I added a pear. I could also add a number. So I could say fruits dot append and then 3, and it would add it to my list. So in this case, I've added a string. But you can also add items to your list with this plus equals sign. It does the exact same thing. You can even try it out on your own if you're plugging in fruits right now. It will give you the exact same output, which is this. This is what your list will look like. You might need to print it because Python won't print it for you, but this is what your new list would look like. It just adds it on right to the end. Now, what if I wanted to add it to a yes, what's your question?
Can you not just edit your list?
You can, but this is for like, what if you don't know what the value is going to be? Then you want to have an ability to add that value. Like, let's say you create a function. You guys learned functions, right?
Yeah.
So if your function outputs a value, like let's say you're finding the roots to a quadratic function and you don't know what that is, you can plug that in and then you can have that output into your list. So you don't know what the value is ahead of time, but you can write a function so that it plops it right here.
Another would be like append and then add and then your function. The output
of your function.
Another great reason to do this and not just manually add is because sometimes you're working with millions of data points and that would take like years to do by hand. Well, maybe not years, but like a month of straight work. So that's just it's not practical. Editing it is great for like 10 values tops, then it gets really irritating.
But another place that y'all can think about using that is when you're in loops. If you have an empty list, every iteration of your loop, you can add something to the list, and that's always something that's super helpful, especially when it comes to like collecting data or something.
As we do harder and harder problems, you'll start to see the importance of being able to manipulate lists like with append.
All right. So now let's say I want to add it to a specific location, not just the endpoint. Like here, let's say I want it to be my fruits to be in alphabetical order. And I noticed that orange is not, I have A, B, and then I want a C fruit. So if I want to replace orange, then what I would do is I would call the position of where orange is, which is 2, because we started 0, 1, 2. So fruits 2, and then I'd call it cherry. So I'm basically just renaming it. I'm completely getting rid of it. I'm taking a whole thing out, putting a whole new thing in. So then my new list will be apple, banana, cherry, grape, and then I still have pear because I added it from up here. Does that make sense? Any questions? Oh, yes, what's your question?
If you wanted to keep orange in there but add cherry like next to it, what would you do?
So you can, I think I get into that in a second. Yeah. Or there might be a oh yeah, it's this function right here. It's insert. So I'm actually going to be going through that in the demo. So we'll go through that. So seems like a block text of information. You don't have to memorize all this. All of this is available on Google. It's actually right here at this link on this slide. This is just a brief overview of a ton of things that you can do with lists. I'm not going to go over them in detail, but we will do some of them in the demo. But lists have a wide variety of manipulating powers, basically. All right. Now we're going to go into dictionaries. Dictionaries are very similar to lists, but like I said, they have key value pairs. If that doesn't make sense right now, I'm going to explain, but we'll get into it. So we're going to learn the parts of a dictionary, how to create a dictionary, similar how to append, how to delete things in a dictionary, and how to access keys. All right. So this is my dictionary. I'm calling it Roman numerals. So I'm using camel case right here. So I have lowercase Roman, uppercase numerals. So with dictionaries, you basically assign a location for where your value is. So right now, my key is X, then I have B, then I have I. And then to each of those keys, I'm assigning a value, which is 10, 5, and 1. Sorry, they should be moved over. I can fix that before I post it. So you have your value and you're assigning it a key. So if this doesn't quite make sense, I can jump forward to my future slide down here. So let's say you have a star and you have millions of stars that you just cataloged off the sky and you want to collect their name their name, how bright they are, how far away they are, and what type it is. So right here, we're classifying a supernova, and our keys are these values on the left-hand side. And then our values are the ones on the right hand. They're all separated by a colon. And then your key value pair is separated by a comma. Okay, I'm gonna go back and we're gonna talk more about how to manipulate a dictionary. So, so this should say creating dictionaries, not creating lists. But this is the same format. We have your key separated by a colon and then your value. So this is one pairing. And then you have another pairing over here. And so I have just two. Now, if you want to create an empty dictionary, very similar to how you create an empty list, you're going to use curly brackets. So no squares, no parentheses, curly. Otherwise, Python will throw you an error because it doesn't understand what you're trying to tell it. So we have curly brackets. And then in your dictionary, you can also create it a different way. So let's say you have a variable name. You can set it equal to dictionary, which is funny in my opinion that it has parentheses, but that's that's two different ways to create an empty dictionary. And then you can fill it just like so, like I did with the supernova, but you can fill it like 1 is Monday, and then 2 is Tuesday, and you can see the pattern continue for your key and value pair. Yes.
And the last one is 1 the value, or?
Sorry, 1 is the key, second one is the value.
Got it, always.
Always. All right, so if we want to add a date of the week, so let's say I want to add, so 5 is not the same thing as with lists. In lists, numbers matter. You had 0, 1, 2, 3 to infinity. That was your order. You can't change that about lists. With dictionaries, it's different. If I can just add 5 right here. I don't have to call it 3. I can call it anything I want. In this case, I chose 5 because 5th day of the week. Yes.
Sorry.
No, you're good. So I'm calling this 5 and I'm calling this Friday. So the order doesn't matter, but what you assign your key and value pair do matter. Like I wouldn't want to call, like if Monday's the 1st day of the week, I wouldn't want to call Friday the 3rd day of the week. Does that make sense? Or any questions so far? Okay. And then let's say I want to delete something. Like let's say I want to jump straight from Tuesday to Friday and I don't want to have a Monday. Then I can go in and similar as calling it the spot, like this is my key, this is my value. So then this is my key and I'm deleting it. So dictionaries are a little weird to delete, but you use del space your dictionary name, the index or the key you want to delete, and then this would be your new dictionary. Yes.
If you wanted your key to be a string, you could just in the brackets.
Yeah, so-
quotation.
Just like that, perfect. So yeah, your key and value can be anything. They can be booleans, they could be, I don't think they can be booleans, but they can definitely be strings and they can definitely be numbers. It's just a system of categorizing pairs. All right. All right, so now if we want to access certain parts of our dictionary, like let's say we have our fifth key, which we assign to be Friday, I can just call it straight off the bat and it'll produce my value name. So I'm accessing the key labeled 5 and it's printing Friday. But let's say I want Friday to be the first day of the week. The number does not matter. This is just what I gave it. The order does not matter. Lists, it does. All right, and then let's say instead of wanting the key, you want the value. So you can type dot values and it'll give you everything in your list. So this is our edited list where I deleted Monday from the previous slide. So that's why it's only Tuesday and Friday. But I'm accessing all the values for all of my keys. All right. And then for all your keys, it's very similar. You just do dot keys and it gives you your 2 outputs that I have thus far. All right, we'll get into a demo and it'll make more sense, but this is just for the slides. You can,
If you assign, like, you assign Friday a value or a key and you wanted to change that key, is that possible or would you have to delete that?
I'm pretty sure you can change it. Yeah. All right, you can't change a key.
You can change values, sorry,
You
you can't change the key.
Because the keys defines your dictionary. Yeah. So you can change the value. Okay. All right, now we're gonna go to a demo. So let me pull up my terminal.
Like me, Brianna does not have VS Code.
Sorry, guys.
You can follow along on VS Code.
Okay, I gotta get out of full screen.
Is all of this changing happening in a terminal or in the?
What do you mean?
Well, so you say you write a dictionary or a list in VS Code, and but you then you're adding and changing values to keys. Does that happen in the terminal?
So VS Code is a very, very fancy text editor. When all of your Python, whether you're using Jupyter Notebooks, I know a few of you are, and you'll get a better introduction a little later in the semester, or VS Code, or just your terminal, you are running through your terminal because your terminal is directly accessing your computer, which is where Python is stored. Does that make sense? So you're storing, so the thing about Python is it's a super high level language. We talked about this. So you don't need to indicate where to store variables. So that's when you get into like assembly and stuff. That's like hardcore CS major stuff. I don't know exactly where in your computer you're storing these variables. All you need to know is that you are storing them in your computer's memory. And then once you exit out of the Python session, it forgets all of these variables, and any changes you make are being changed in the computer's memory. So I guess short answer is your terminal, but VS Code and your terminal are the same thing. Does that make sense?
Sort of, yeah.
Okay, it's weird. I mean, as you guys get more practice with it, it'll start being more intuitive. Again, computers are just really, really weird. It's hard to conceptualize what's going on, but you are running it through your computer, through your local server. You're running all of these calculations through your local server. The easiest representation of which is your like the most direct representation of which is your terminal, but VS Code is your terminal, just really dolled up and very fancy and really nice. Does that make sense? It's a little Does that make a little more sense?
Okay, so we're gonna start by creating an empty list, and I'm gonna call it planets. How do I create an empty list? 2 square brackets, yep. So then I'm gonna hit enter, and I have an empty list called planets. All right, so now I'm gonna add some things to my list. So I'm gonna go planets, which is the name, yes. Yeah, even more, of course. More, good. Perfect. All right, so planets, and then I'm going to go dot append. Spelled append wrong. And then inside my parentheses for append, I'm going to say Mercury. All right, and I've just added Mercury to my list. I'm going to add a couple more planets, so I'm going to do this a couple more times. Thank you. Sorry, it's mirrored. It's not mirrored on my screen. Planets dot append. Planets dot append Mars. Okay, so I've now added 3 items to my list, and we can see what our list looks like. So I'm going to go print, and then I'm going to go planets. If I can ever spell planets right. There we go. So I have my list in my square brackets, and then I have 3 elements in my list. I have Mercury, I have Earth, and I have Mars. All separated by quotation marks because they're strings and commas. All right. Now let's, but I've forgotten Venus. So we're going to go back in and we're going to add Venus right in between Mercury and Earth. So to do that, we're going to use the insert power, which is on the slides. So we're going to go planets, and then we're going to go dot insert, and then we're going to go 1, because this is the location where I want to put Venus. Because Mercury is 0, and right now Earth is in the 1 position. But if we go dot insert, then we're inserting Venus into our 1 position, and it bumps everything else forward. So we're going to go 1, and then I'm going to call it Venus. And then there we go. All right, and then we're going to print it so we know what it looks like. There we go. So now we have our list, and we have Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars. And because we put it in the first location, it bumps Earth to 2nd and Mars, Earth to 2nd and Mars to 3rd. All right. Now, let's say we want to access a specific value. So I just want it to print Earth. Then I can go to print, and then I'll say planets. And then I'll call 2 because that's the location of Earth. And then I can hit enter, and it prints my value, which is Earth, for the 2nd element in my list. Okay, now let's say we want to be fancy and we want to call Mars by its Greek name, Ares. Then we can rename it by going planets, and then we can go 3 because that's the location of where Mars is in my list. And then we can go equal Ares. And then I can print out my list again to see the changes. So now we have the list, and in the 3rd location, we have replaced Mars with Ares using the index feature of lists. Okay. Okay, now let's say I decide to append Jupiter to my list. We can print this out. But I now decide that I no longer want Jupiter. Then I can go planets, and I can use the remove feature, and I can go dot remove, and I can say Jupiter, and then enter, and then I can print it out again, and Jupiter's gone. So what I just did there is I appended it to my list with dot append. I put the string in between these parentheses. Then I use dot remove, same in interior parentheses with the quotation marks, and it's gone. All right. Yes. Yes, I'm pretty sure you can delete from, yeah, you can use like the dot inserted it to a specific location. So I'm pretty sure there's a way to delete it from a certain location.
It's like called pop or something.
Yeah.
This is where we say, look it up. Unfortunately, there's too many things you can do with lists for us to teach them all to you in an hour. You have a question too.
Oh yeah, if it's like, if the list is of integers or other, variables, and you said print, would it just like, would it still print the integers?
Yeah, so it would print like the square brackets and then it'd be like 1, 2, yeah. We'll get more into that later. I have more advanced stuff, but I'm getting a little stuck on this stuff. Okay. Now, another thing we can do with lists is we can print their length. So let's say I want to know how many planets I have in my mini solar system. Then I can go print, and then inside that I can go length, and it says 4. I have 4 planets right now. So that's another little handy thing. Okay, now we're going to move into dictionaries. So for this one, we're going to work with just Mars. So I'm going to call it 4th planet. Or no, Mars is the 3rd planet. No, we're 4th planet. I'm silly. Okay, 4th planet. Planet. And now for dictionary, I'm going to have my 2 curly brackets. We'll do 1 for now. So we have 2 curly brackets, and then I'm going to go name, which is a string, and then I'm going to go colon, and I'm going to go Mars. And then I can separate that, and I can do another key value pair. So I can do moons and colon, and then I can create a list inside my dictionary by using 2 square brackets. And then I can say Phobos, and then I can say Deimos. Sorry, it cuts off. It loops around. So another separated by a comma. And then let's say I just want to know the atmosphere. Does it have an atmosphere? And for this, I can say false, which is just a Boolean. Okay, so I have 3 key value pairs in my dictionary 4th planet. I have name associated with Mars. I have moons associated with Phobos and Deimos. And then I have atmosphere associated with false. Which is actually wrong, but we'll get to that in a second. Mars does have an atmosphere. Well, no, well, I'm gonna fix it, but yeah. Okay, so there we go. There's my dictionary. So I can print it out. And same information as we just put in. Okay, so now I realize my horrible error, and I know that Mars does have an atmosphere. So I can go 4th planet, or the name of my dictionary, and I can go atmosphere, because that is the name of my key, is atmosphere. Like, remember with days of the week, my keys were numbers, so I would have done 3, but in this case, I'm doing a string, and then I'm setting it equal to true, and then I can reprint out my dictionary, and it fixed it. So now atmosphere is true. Okay. All right, so that's it for the demo at the moment. So let me close this out. And now we're going to get to some more advanced list stuff. Okay.
So much.
It's from last semester. The
I bet
yellow.
it's not.
I just left it because I was like, I won't change it too much. Okay, so now now we're gonna get into some more handy features of lists. So one main thing you'll be especially working with the homework is slicing and striding. So slicing is basically shortening your list. So right now I'm returning to my fruits list, which is apple, banana, cherry, grape. And then I can slice it by denoting my list, where I want it to start, where I want it to end, in between my square brackets. So I did a little format here. So this is the name, and then this is your start, and this is your end. And then if I do that, it will turn it to banana and grape. Wait. Yeah, okay, great. Does that make sense? Okay, and then for slicing, it's similar, but we have now a step value. Yes,
The first one, why is cherry excluded?
because it only counts those values.
Okay.
So then for slicing, then we have list, then we have start, but now we have an interval. So now if I was to call 032, so I'm starting at 0 index, I'm going to my third one, and I'm skipping 2 steps each time. So this is my 0, which is apple, and then I'm skipping 2. I should have orange in here, sorry about that. And then this would be orange instead of green. That was my bad. I'm sorry for typos. We'll go into the demo and that'll hopefully be more instructive. Okay, and then for joining multiple lists together, this is another very powerful thing. So if you're just thinking about numbers, or it can be also strings, but you can add them together very much like you add numbers in math. So 2 plus 2 is 4. In this case, you have array 1, which is 1, 2, 3. Array 2, 4, 5, 6. You add them together and you get an added list. So longer list, double the size, because I have double the numbers. Okay, another way of joining lists together, very similar to what we just did. Instead, you can use .append. So in this case, I'm taking my entire first list and I'm appending my entire second list. So instead of just adding one value, now you can add a ton of values if you have multiple items in that list. Okay. All right, now we're gonna go back to the advanced demo. So I'm gonna close this. All right. Okay, so I'm going to start with a list called nums, and I'm going to give it numbers. Okay, so now I have a new list, and I called it nums, just for short. And if I want to slice it, then I can call a new list, and I'm going to call it sliced. And for that, I'm going to denote it by nums, and then I'm going to go 1 to 9. And then I can print the length. And it's 8. I think I had a typo on the previous slide because I don't think the slide should have worked like that. But in this case, what I've done is I had my original list nums. And then for sliced, I'm taking the first value, which is actually 2 in this case, because remember, Python starts counting at 0. So this is actually 0, 1, 2, 3, blah, blah, blah. So I'm starting at value 1, which is 2. I'm ending at value 9, and then I'm taking the length. So I didn't have multiple things all at once. So that's how I got 8. So it's basically 2, it's counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's counting up all of those and printing it out. Okay. Yes.
So then, like, slicing it, those aren't the value, or those aren't the value positions, those are the value,
What do you mean?
the 1 and the 9.
Yeah, so so lists have a sequenced order. So this is why I did this example, because 1 in this case is not given the index value of 1. It's given the index value of 0.
Yeah.
So therefore, when I say start at 1, I'm actually counting it from 2.
Okay, so it is the index value.
Yeah, sorry, I guess
And
I
then
didn't.
9 goes to,
Goes to 9.
but there is no, wouldn't there be no index 9?
I guess, let's see what happens. Might be right. I guess it just, Let's-
Is it because 9 would be exclusive?
I guess so. I guess so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so then I guess it works that way. Okay, now let's say I want to go back to my list nums, and I want to create a list where I have only odd numbers, but in a decreasing order. So with that, I can go reversed, and I can go nums, and then I can go 8, 2, and then I can print this. Oh, sorry. That was my bad. I did spell it wrong. Okay. We'll spell it like I spelled it wrong. Okay.
Oh, I think double, right? You're trying to change that.
Yes, okay. We'll just call it R. Oh my goodness. Okay. 8 double colon. Yes.
Can anyone tell me why nums 8 to
There we
-2 didn't work? First of all, do we remember what a negative index does? Do you want to say it?
From the first value back to the end of the list.
Yeah, from the end to the front.
From the end.
Yeah. Exactly. So what's it doing? What's 8 to -2 doing? Shout it out. What's it trying to do? Yeah,
Eight to eight.
so it's just not printing out anything. Great.
Okay. All right. So now let's go into adding more lists together. So let's say I start over and I have list underscore 1 is equal to A, B, C. And then I'm calling another list. And I'm going to give it 17, 18, 19. Okay. Now let's say I want to add them together, then I can go add. That's just the new name of my new list that I'm creating. New variable name. And I can go list. And then I can print that. Okay, so just added the list together. So list 1, list 2, and it just appends them right onto the end. Okay. Now let's say I introduce a third list. So I go list 3 and I fill it with some Booleans. Then I can extend that to my first list, which is ABC. So I can go list underscore 1. That's what I'm calling it. And then I can extend it, which is a feature. And then I can say list 3. And then I can print that. Okay, so I started out with 2 lists. So I had list 1, list 2. I added them together in a new list called add. And then I printed that. So all my values. But then I would turn back to list 1 and I appended it with my list 3, which were Booleans. So now I have a new list ABC, true, false, false. So that's why I have 2 different endings to 2 different lists. Yes.
Does the add make a new list or does it just like?
So add is just the name of my new variable. So I could call it anything I want. I could have called it like 3 list, or I could have called it like banana, anything I want. It's just a name I'm giving it. And in this case, I called it add because that's just like instructive to like showing what I did with the previous 2 lists.
So add is a new list.
It is a new list.
Oh,
Yeah. Sorry.
So if you wanted to append the add with the list 3, you could do that as well.
Yeah, like we could go. There you go.
Oh, that adds in, so the true, false, false is a whole term.
Yeah.
Whereas in the extend, true, false, false are 3 separate terms.
You know, I'm actually curious why.
Oh, so the reason it's doing that is when you do dot append list 3, it's taking list 3 as a list object. It's not gonna look at each element in the list. It's just gonna throw the whole list in there.
The way to combine 2 lists is to use the adds.
That's what I did.
Oh, so.
It's been a while.
But yeah, so technically, like, the difference is like, in the second case, your list isn't going element wise, it's just taking a whole list object. But when you're using extend, it's going element wise.
Okay. All right, now I can do a bit more of an advanced. So let's say I have another list. I just love creating lists today, and I'm calling this one desserts. I can fill it, and I'm gonna say like cookie, and I can say ice cream, say brownie, and I'll say this one's candy. Okay. So now let's say I only wanted to print words in my list that started with C and I wanted to make them all uppercase. Then I can do that all in one line. So I can create a whole new list of just my C words that are capitalized, and I'm gonna call it C words. And for that, I'm going to use 2 square brackets, and I'm gonna say, I'm using a couple of things from the slides for the built-in functions, but I'm starting with an element in my list. So for this case, I have desserts, which is the whole thing, but then dessert without the S is just one element of this. I can even call it D, but for this case, we just want to remember the difference that desserts with an S is the whole list, but then dessert, no S, is just one value of it. I think you guys did that with 4 functions, where you had like I. Have they done that yet, Charlie? Well, they have like I. Have they used I for 4 loops?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we-
so similar thing. All right, so I'm going to say dessert dot upper, and then, so that is my action I'm calling. And then for dessert, in desserts, and then the condition I want is if the dessert dot starts with, and then I want C. I'll go over what I just did. I'm just going to print it out. Okay, so I've just done a whole bunch of things in one line. So basically, I did use a mini for loop. So I didn't write out a whole function. I called it all in one line. So I have my list desserts, which is cookie, ice cream, brownie, candy. And then if the word starts with a C, so then Python goes in, sees if the first element of my string is a C. If it does, it's like, okay, moves forward. Then it says, so that's for dessert. So any one of my items in my list that starts with C, so it's like, okay, I'm only looking at cookie and I'm only looking at candy. Then for those elements, it's then making them all uppercase. And then I called that new list that are uppercase C words, and then I printed it, so I have cookie and I have candy. So it's just one nifty thing that you can do with lists. You have a question?
Yeah, if it starts, if you want us to start looking at the C words first, why did you put the dessert uppercase first?
So that's just how Python like reads the code. So I guess I did put it first, but it's kind of like for like do this thing for elements in my list that have this condition.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Now I think I have time for one more thing for dictionaries. So let's say I call my dictionary friends, fave, nums. And did I spell everything right? Okay. And then I'm going to give a couple friends. So I have Alice, who is a key, and her favorite numbers are 501 and 66. And then I'm gonna have another friend, Bob, and his favorite numbers are 7, 23, 111. And then I have another friend, Chuck, whose favorite numbers are 26, 82, and let's say 84. Okay. Then I'm going to end it all with a curly bracket. Nope, I already had one. So that's my dictionary. So it's a dictionary called Friends Fave Numbers. I have 3 key value pairs that are all assigned to a list of numbers. So let's say I want to take the average numbers for each one of my friends. Then I can go have a new dictionary called average nums. And I'm just going to write it out and then I'll explain what I'm doing. So I'm taking the sum of all of their numbers, and then I'm going to divide it by the length of that. And then for Yes, thank you. It's still, did I name it wrong? Oh, okay, I need a lowercase bracket. Okay, and then I can print this new list or this new dictionary. And I have these new values. So what I've done is I've turned I might have pushed it up, but I've turned my list. I can bring it back. So I've turned my old dictionary, which had 3 key value pairs, Alice, Bob, Chuck, with their list of favorite numbers. Then what I did was I took the sum of all those numbers. I divided it by the number of them in that list. So basically took 26 plus 82 plus 84, divided it by 3. And then for each name and num, so this is like your I index and your for loop. I just called them name and num in my dictionary for those items. And then I printed it. So now I have Alice, whose sum of all of her numbers is 57 point blah, 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 blah. Bob's is 47 and Chuck's is 64. Yes.
You do name and not like, you do 2 variables because the dictionary has the key and values.
Yeah. Yeah.
If-
Yeah.
If you just did 1 variable, would it just do the keys?
You could try it. I'm not sure. Yes.
What is it dot
It's a property of dictionaries. And I'm pretty sure it's just taking all the key value pairs. But you can Google it for the specifics of what it does. Yes, question? Yeah, so this is like your I in your for loop. So it's like for I in my list. So it's like for every element in my list, I'm calling it name and num instead of I. So I basically created a condensed for list again in one line. Yes.
Also, like, going back to the example, like the supernova,
Mhm.
the dictionary, you have a list of those dictionaries.
I believe you can, yes. Yes. I think that's
Yeah,
mainly why they're used. Yeah, so like if you had millions of stars, you could create like Milky Way galaxy, and then you could have dictionaries of all those values and then all the stars in that list.
Yeah, I used to tell students that I don't understand why dictionaries are important. And now dictionaries are one of my favorite things in the world, just entirely. They're so good. And you will find that out.
I've yet to find that out.
It's so good.
No, it's actually.
I've
It's
never used a
perfect.
dictionary in my research.
You'll figure it out.
Okay,
You'll find
good
out.
to know.
You have to take radio.
Take
Okay.
Radio Lab, you'll know.
Take Radiolab, guys.
Okay, well, we're at time, so thank you.
Everyone, have a lovely rest of the day.
If you did not, get marked for attendance, please come up and see me right now.
Yeah.